The Thompson estate loomed like a fortress against the afternoon sky, its pale stone walls gleaming under the weak March sun. Lena gripped her small suitcase tighter, her knuckles white, and took a deep breath. This was it, the nanny position she had worked so hard to secure. A steady paycheck, room and board, and a chance to live somewhere that felt like it belonged in a storybook. She pushed open the heavy front doors, and was greeted by the sharp scent of polished wooden lilies. A footman led her to the grand foyer, where crystal chandeliers reflected in the marble floors. Lena felt like an intruder stepping into a world that wasn't hers. "Ms. Lena Carter," a calm, commanding voice asked. Lena turned, startled, to find Victoria Thompson standing at the base of the staircase. She was tall, impeccably dressed, and radiated an effortless authority. Her dark hair was pulled into a sleek bun, and her green eyes assessed Lena with a piercing intensity that made her blush. "That's me," Lena said, forcing a confident smile. "I assume you know the rules," Victoria said, her voice smooth but edged with warning. "You are here to care for Mia. Everything else falls under my supervision." "Understood." "Yeah." Victoria's gaze lingered a moment longer, before she nodded and turned on her heel. "The nursery is this way. Mia is expecting you." Lena followed silently, clutching her bag. The hallway was long, lined with portraits of ancestors, whose eyes seemed to follow her. Every step echoed beneath the vaulted ceilings. When they reached the nursery, Lena paused. Sunlight spilled through the tall windows, illuminating toys scattered across the plush rug. And in the middle of it all, a little girl with curly brown hair and mischievous eyes stared at her. "Hello," Lena said softly. "I'm Lena. I'll be taking care of you." Mia didn't respond at first. She tilted her head, scrutinizing Lena as if trying to decide whether to accept her. Then, with sudden boldness, she darted forward and hugged Lena's legs. "Hi. I like you," Mia declared with the certainty only a 5-year-old could possess. Lena laughed, relief washing over her. "I like you too, Mia." As she lifted the girl into her arms, Lena felt a presence behind her. She turned slightly, catching Victoria watching from the doorway. The intensity in her eyes made Lena's stomach flutter. Victoria said nothing, only observed, and Lena quickly looked away, cheeks warming. For the first time in a long while, Lena felt like her heart was out of her control. Not from fear. Not from nerves. Something else entirely, an electric, unnameable tension that both frightened and thrilled her. Victoria finally spoke, her tone neutral, but unmistakably commanding. "Dinner will be in an hour. Mia is your responsibility until then." Lena nodded. "Of course, Ms. Thompson." Victoria's eyes softened for a brief, fleeting moment, almost imperceptibly, before she turned and walked away. Lena exhaled, trying to calm the rapid beat of her heart. As she settled Mia onto the rug and began to unpack the toys, Lena realized the truth she hadn't admitted to herself yet. This job was going to be more than she expected. Much more. And somehow, she knew that Victoria Thompson would be at the center of it all. The house was quiet that evening, save for the soft creak of the staircase and Mia's occasional giggle as she explored her toys. Lena had just finished helping Mia build a precarious tower of blocks when a sharp knock echoed through the nursery door. "Come in," Lena called, brushing a stray curl from her face. Victoria stepped in, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. She carried an air of authority that made the room feel smaller, tighter, more charged. Lena's stomach twisted with a mixture of nerves and anticipation. "Mia seems comfortable with you," Victoria said, her green eyes scanning the blocks Lena had carefully arranged. "Good. That's important." "Thank you, Ms. Thompson," Lena replied, trying to sound professional, though her pulse betrayed her. Victoria moved closer, examining a tower Lena had just completed. She leaned slightly, and Lena caught the faint scent of her. Something crisp, floral, with an undertone of something intoxicating she couldn't name. "You have patience," Victoria said softly, almost a murmur, yet it sent a shiver down Lena's spine. "I try," Lena admitted, her cheeks warming. She looked down at Mia, who was now quietly observing the two adults with a knowing grin. Victoria's lips curved into the faintest smile, almost imperceptible, before she straightened and cleared her throat. "Dinner will be served shortly. You'll join Mia, of course." "I'll be down in a moment." As Victoria turned to leave, Lena noticed something in her gaze, a flicker of curiosity, maybe even intrigue. It made Lena's chest tighten in a way she hadn't felt in years. After the door closed, Lena sank onto the floor beside Mia, trying to shake off the fluttering in her stomach. "She's intense," Lena whispered, half to herself. Mia giggled. "You like her?" Lena froze. What? Your face. It's all red. You like her?" Mia's voice was teasing, sharp, like she had known secrets far too long for a 5-year-old. "I know. It's just, she's very, impressive," Lena stammered, embarrassed. Mia raised an eyebrow, and smiled knowingly. "Okay, sure. Whatever you say." She returned her attention to the blocks, leaving Lena flushed and slightly flustered. Later that evening, as Lena carried Mia to her bed, she caught a glimpse of Victoria at the top of the staircase, leaning against the banister. Their eyes met for a brief, electric moment. Lena felt heat creep up her neck and chest. Victoria's expression was unreadable, but the intensity of her gaze left Lena unsettled in the most delicious way. "You're doing well," Victoria said softly, her voice drifting down the stairs like a melody only Lena could hear. Thank you," Lena replied, her voice barely a whisper. Victoria's lips curved again, a subtle acknowledgement, before she disappeared into the shadows of the hallway. Lena exhaled, heart racing, and wondered, what was it about this woman that made every interaction feel like a collision? She'd only been here a few hours, and already, she knew this job would challenge more than her patience. It would challenge her heart. The house was silent, except for the soft hum of the night wind rattling the tall windows. Lena had just finished tucking Mia into bed, her small hands clutching a favorite stuffed bunny. She was about to retreat to her room, when she heard the faintest sobbing coming from the library. Curiosity, and something deeper, she couldn't name, propelled her toward the sound. The library doors were slightly ajar, and inside, Victoria sat slumped in a high-backed chair, her head buried in her hands. The firelight flickered across the polished wood floors, illuminating her form. "Miss Thompson." Lena's voice was hesitant, almost a whisper. Victoria lifted her head, her eyes glistening. "Lena." "I didn't hear you come in," she admitted, her voice tight with emotion. It's been a difficult day." Lena stepped closer, her nerves fluttering like butterflies. "Do you want to talk about it?" Victoria shook her head slightly, but her hands were trembling. I'm not used to letting anyone see this side of me. My family, they expect everything to be perfect. I've carried a lot alone for a long time." Without thinking, Lena sat on the edge of the chair across from her. "You don't have to carry it alone. Not tonight." Her hand hovered briefly near Victoria's, unsure if it would be welcome. Victoria looked at her, a mixture of vulnerability and something else, something raw and unspoken, in her gaze. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she reached out, letting their fingers brush. The touch was light, but it sent a jolt straight through Lena's chest. I don't usually do this," Victoria murmured, her eyes locking onto Lena's. Let anyone in, I mean. I'm not leaving, Lena said softly, her own heart hammering. Not if you need someone to stay. For a long moment, they just sat there, the fire casting shadows that danced across the room. Then, without warning, Victoria leaned forward, resting her forehead lightly against Lena's. Their breaths mingled, and Lena felt the world shrink until it was just the two of them, two hearts beating in quiet, unspoken understanding. You're different, Victoria whispered. And I can't stop thinking about you. Lena's voice caught in her throat. I feel the same. I wasn't supposed to, she trailed off, unsure if she should admit the feelings that had been building since the moment she stepped into the mansion. Victoria closed her eyes for a brief moment, then slowly opened them, searching Lena's face. Maybe rules don't matter tonight, she said softly. Lena's lips curved into a tentative smile, and then, almost instinctively, they moved closer. The air between them was electric, charged with tension, curiosity, and something tenderly forbidden. Their foreheads pressed together, breaths mingling, a moment of quiet intimacy in the vast, lonely mansion. For Lena, the night's silence was no longer empty, it was filled with possibility, with unspoken desire, with the fragile promise of something more than either of them had anticipated. And she knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The next morning, the mansion felt different to Lena, as if the walls themselves held a secret she now shared with Victoria. She moved quietly through the hallways, careful not to wake Mia, and yet every glance, every shadow, seemed charged with the memory of the night before. Victoria was in the kitchen, her posture straight and composed as she sipped her coffee. But when she saw Lena, a flicker of something unspoken passed across her face, a softness she rarely allowed anyone to see. Good morning, Victoria said, her voice smooth, yet carrying a warmth that made Lena's chest tighten. Morning, Lena replied, keeping her tone casual, though her heart was racing. Mia bounded into the kitchen, pulling at Lena's hand. Lena. Look. I made pancakes, she exclaimed, her excitement filling the room. Lena smiled, ruffling the little girl's hair. They look amazing, Mia. Let's sit before they get cold. As they ate, Victoria observed from across the table. Lena caught her gaze, and for a brief second, the air between them hummed with tension. Neither said anything about last night, yet both felt its lingering presence. Later, Lena carried a basket of laundry up to Victoria's study. The door was slightly ajar, and she peeked inside to see Victoria bent over a stack of papers. Miss Thompson, Lena said softly, stepping in. Victoria looked up, startled. Ah, Lena. You're here early. I thought I'd help with the laundry, Lena said, holding out the basket. Victoria's eyes flickered over Lena, a mixture of appreciation and something more intimate. Thank you, she said quietly, setting her papers aside. The space between them felt charged, their proximity suddenly unbearable. Lena's hands trembled slightly, as she placed the laundry on a nearby chair. Victoria's gaze lingered on her longer than necessary, and Lena felt a pull she couldn't resist. You're different from anyone I've met, Victoria said, her voice low, almost a whisper. There's something about you, something I can't ignore. Lena swallowed hard, her breath catching. I feel the same, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Victoria stepped closer, the scent of her, sharp, floral, intoxicating, surrounding Lena. The room seemed to shrink around them, the boundaries they had tried to maintain evaporating. They stood there, inches apart, and for a heartbeat, the world outside the study ceased to exist. Lena's hand brushed against Victoria's as she adjusted the laundry, and this time, Victoria didn't pull away. You know this is complicated, Victoria said softly, her lips so close Lena could feel her breath. I know, Lena whispered. But I can't stop feeling this. Victoria's fingers lingered near Lena's, a silent promise, a dangerous temptation neither wanted to resist. The tension between them crackled like electricity, both thrilling and terrifying. And in that quiet, stolen moment, Lena realized that the mansion's walls were no longer barriers. They were witnesses to the beginning of something inevitable. Something that would change both of their lives forever. The storm came suddenly, a clash of thunder and wind that rattled the mansion's windows. Lena was in the nursery, trying to calm Mia, whose wide eyes reflected the flickering lightning outside. "Storms don't scare me," Mia insisted, clutching her stuffed bunny, "but I'm glad you're here, Lena." Lena smiled, brushing the girl's hair back. "I'm not going anywhere, Mia. We'll be safe." The storm outside mirrored the storm inside Lena's heart. She had tried to focus on Mia, on her responsibilities, but every thought inevitably drifted back to Victoria. Every glance, every lingering touch from earlier in the week played like a movie in her mind. A sudden crack of thunder made the little girl squeal. Lena scooped her up and carried her to the living room, where the fire burned bright and warm. That's when she noticed Victoria already there, standing near the grand piano, arms crossed, watching them with an intensity that made Lena's breath catch. "Is she okay?" Victoria asked, her voice softer than usual, a hint of vulnerability breaking through her composed exterior. "She's fine," Lena replied, trying to steady her racing heart. "A little scared, but it's nothing I can't handle." Victoria's gaze lingered on Lena for a moment longer than necessary. The storm outside was loud, but inside, the silence between them was deafening. Finally, Victoria stepped closer. "Lena," her voice was low, trembling slightly. "I shouldn't, we can't." But words failed her. The unspoken tension, the yearning, the forbidden attraction, was too much to contain. Lena's eyes searched Victoria's, finding the same desire reflected back, raw and undeniable. Without thinking, Lena took a tentative step forward. Victoria's eyes widened and for a heartbeat, they both froze. Then, as if drawn together by an invisible force, they closed the distance. Their lips met, softly at first, a question whispered between them, testing the boundaries of what was right and what was irresistible. Lena's hands trembled as they rested against Victoria's shoulders. Victoria responded, her fingers brushing through Lena's hair, pulling her closer, deepening the kiss. The world outside, the storm, the mansion, even little Mia, ceased to exist. There was only the heat of their connection, the racing of their hearts, the danger and thrill of giving in to something forbidden. When they finally pulled back, breathless and flushed, their foreheads rested against each other. Neither spoke. Words were unnecessary. Victoria's green eyes held a softness Lena hadn't seen before, mingled with a spark of something daring. "This changes everything," she whispered. Lena's lips curved into a small, shy smile. "Maybe it's worth it," she murmured. And for the first time since she had arrived at the mansion, Lena felt completely, undeniably alive, caught between desire, risk, and the undeniable promise of something extraordinary. The mansion was quiet in the early morning, the kind of stillness that made every creak of the floorboards feel louder than it was. Lena carried Mia's breakfast tray up to her room, smiling as the little girl chattered about school projects and imaginary adventures. Once Mia was happily eating, Lena quietly made her way to the library, where she found Victoria already seated with a cup of coffee, staring out the window at the grey morning sky. The firelight from the previous night was gone, replaced by the soft, muted light of dawn. Victoria looked up as Lena entered. "Good morning," she said, her voice carrying that subtle warmth that always made Lena's chest tighten. "Morning," Lena replied, setting down a stack of papers Victoria had left on the table. "I thought I'd check on you." Victoria gave a faint smile, one that didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you. I didn't sleep well last night." Lena hesitated, then took a small step closer. Do you want to talk about it? She asked softly. Victoria looked at her for a long moment, then sighed. I suppose. I've never been able to let someone in like this before. I always keep up appearances, do what's expected. But, you, Lena, you make it impossible to hide everything. Lena's heart skipped. Victoria, she whispered. Victoria's gaze softened. I want to tell you things I've never told anyone. She paused, her fingers brushing the edge of the table. But it's complicated. What we're doing, it's not exactly appropriate. I know, Lena said, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. But feelings don't follow rules. Victoria laughed softly, a sound that seemed to ease some of the tension in the room. You're fearless, she said, eyes twinkling with something mischievous. Or maybe just reckless. I like to think it's brave, Lena teased, though her own hands shook slightly. For a while, they sat in silence, the kind that wasn't uncomfortable, but charged, full of unspoken words and shared understanding. Then Victoria leaned back, her eyes fixed on Lena. I want you to know. I've been alone for a long time. Afraid. Afraid of being vulnerable, of letting someone see me as I really am. Lena moved closer, drawn by the honesty in Victoria's voice. I'm here, she said softly. You don't have to be afraid with me. Victoria's breath hitched slightly. You really mean that? I do, Lena whispered, her hand brushing Victoria's. The contact was light but electric. For a long moment, they just sat, fingers brushing, hearts pounding. The mansion felt smaller, warmer, as though the walls themselves were protecting their secret. It wasn't just desire anymore, it was trust, connection, something deeper than either of them had anticipated. Victoria leaned closer, resting her forehead against Lena's. I've wanted this, for longer than I realized, she confessed, her voice barely audible. Lena's lips curved into a soft smile. Me too, she admitted. The quiet intimacy of that morning, the stolen touches, the whispered confessions, the electric closeness, solidified something neither could deny. Whatever challenges awaited them in the outside world, here, in this moment, they belonged to each other. And for Lena, that was enough to make every risk worth it. The evening air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of blooming jasmine from the Thompson estate gardens. Lena's hands trembled slightly as she stepped out of the car, glancing around to make sure the coast was clear. Victoria had arranged something unusual, a night away from the mansion, a night just for them. Victoria was already waiting, leaning casually against the sleek black car, her dark coat wrapped neatly around her. When she saw Lena, her green eyes softened and a small, almost shy smile curved her lips. You're late, Victoria teased, though the warmth in her tone melted some of Lena's nerves. Traffic, Lena lied, brushing a loose curl from her face, though her cheeks betrayed her with a faint blush. Victoria stepped closer, brushing a stray strand of hair behind Lena's ear, a touch that made Lena's stomach flip. You look beautiful, she murmured. Lena's heart raced. You look amazing too, she said softly, feeling suddenly vulnerable under Victoria's gaze. They walked side by side through the quiet streets, the city lights twinkling like stars against the night sky. The world felt different out here, less formal, less controlled. Lena felt free in a way she hadn't since arriving at the mansion. Victoria led her to a small, cozy cafe tucked away on a side street. The warm glow of lanterns and the soft hum of conversation created an intimate bubble around them. They sat at a corner table, hands brushing occasionally, sending sparks of anticipation through Lena every time. I wasn't sure you'd agree to this, Victoria said, her voice low, almost teasing. Why not? Lena asked, smiling despite the nervous flutter in her chest. I trust you. Victoria's eyes softened, and she reached across the table, taking Lena's hand in hers. I hope you're ready for this, she whispered. I'm not good at letting people in, but I want you to be different. I want to be different, Lena replied, squeezing her hand. I want to be with you, Victoria. Even if it's scary. The conversation flowed naturally after that, easy and light, yet charged with the kind of tension that made Lena's pulse race. They shared stories, laughter, and small, intimate glances that lingered a little too long. Every touch, every brush of hands under the table, sent shivers down Lena's spine. As they stepped back into the cool night air, Victoria slipped her arm around Lena's waist, pulling her close. The city buzzed quietly around them, but in that moment, Lena felt like the world had shrunk to just the two of them. Stay with me tonight, Victoria said softly, her forehead resting against Lena's. Lena's heart leapt. I'd like that, she murmured. For the first time, they walked together not as nanny and employer, but as two women discovering each other, exploring the thrill of love that was exciting, forbidden, and utterly consuming. And as they disappeared down the quiet, lantern-lit street, Lena knew this was the beginning of something she would never forget. A night of stolen moments, secret laughter, and the undeniable spark of their first real date. The following morning, Lena arrived at the mansion earlier than usual, trying to get a head start on her tasks. She wanted everything to be perfect before Victoria appeared. But the moment she stepped into the grand foyer, she felt it, an unusual tension in the air, the kind that made her chest tighten. Victoria was waiting at the base of the staircase, impeccably dressed as always, but her expression was different, serious, unreadable, like she was holding something back. Good morning, Lena said nervously, brushing a hand over her apron. Morning, Victoria replied, her tone clipped, though her green eyes softened for a fleeting second when they met Lena's. Before Lena could ask anything, Mia ran up, tugging at her arm. Lena! Look at this, she exclaimed, pointing to a small tower of blocks she had built. Lena smiled, ruffling the girl's hair, but her mind kept drifting back to Victoria. There was something she wasn't saying, something she had to reveal. Later, after breakfast, Victoria pulled Lena aside into the study. The walls, lined with books and polished wood, seemed to close around them. Victoria closed the door behind them and took a deep breath. I need to be honest, she began, her voice low. I know about last night. Lena froze. Her heart skipped a beat. You do. Victoria nodded, her eyes searching Lena's. I saw you walking home after the cafe. I wasn't supposed to, but I did. And I know what it means, we can't be reckless, Lena. Not with Mia, not with the family's expectations. Lena's stomach churned. I don't care about expectations. I care about us. Victoria shook her head slightly. I know. And I want this too. But we have to be careful. People talk. Rumors start. We can't let anyone see us together, not yet. The room felt smaller with the weight of their words, the tension almost tangible. Lena reached out, taking Victoria's hand. Then we'll be careful. I'll follow your lead. I don't want to hide how I feel. Victoria's lips quirked into a small, almost apologetic smile. Nor do I. But discretion is necessary, for now. Promise me. I promise, Lena whispered, her eyes locked with Victoria's. But I also promise, this doesn't change what I feel for you. Victoria stepped closer, the warmth of her body pressing gently against Lena's. Good, she murmured, resting her forehead against Lena's. Because I feel the same. Stronger than I ever expected. For a moment, the world outside the study ceased to exist. Their secret, their tension, and their connection were all that mattered. And though the rules and expectations loomed over them, Lena realized that the thrill of their hidden love made every stolen glance, every secret touch, feel more precious. As Victoria pulled back, adjusting her blazer with a sigh, Lena knew that the path ahead would be full of challenges, but also full of moments like this, moments that made every risk worth it. And in that quiet study, surrounded by books and shadows, Lena felt a fierce certainty: whatever happened, she and Victoria were already inextricably tied. The mansion buzzed with a quiet, underlying tension that morning. Lena had barely stepped into the main hallway when she noticed subtle changes. The housekeeper giving her side glances, the butler offering slightly more formal greetings, and whispers that seemed to fade as soon as she approached. She paused, adjusting the strap of her bag, her stomach twisting. Something was happening, something she hadn't anticipated. Victoria appeared at the top of the staircase, her usual composure intact, but Lena caught the briefest flicker of worry in her green eyes. "Lena," Victoria called softly, descending the steps. "We need to talk." Lena followed her into the library, trying to steady her racing heart. The room felt smaller, filled with the faint scent of Victoria's perfume and the unspoken tension between them. "It's starting," Victoria said, her voice low. "Rumors. I don't know who started them, but people are talking. About you, about us." Lena's heart skipped. "Rumors? What do you mean?" Victoria closed her eyes briefly, then opened them, her gaze steady. "Some of the staff have noticed the way we interact. Your closeness with Mia, the little moments we've shared. They are speculating." I tried to stop it, but her voice trailed off. The mansion buzzed with a quiet, underlying tension that morning. Lena had barely stepped into the main hallway when she noticed subtle changes. The housekeeper giving her side glances, the butler offering slightly more formal greetings, and whispers that seemed to fade as soon as she approached. She paused, adjusting the strap of her bag, her stomach twisting. Something was happening, something she hadn't anticipated. Victoria appeared at the top of the staircase, her usual composure intact, but Lena caught the briefest flicker of worry in her green eyes. "Lena," Victoria called softly, descending the steps. "We need to talk." Lena followed her into the library, trying to steady her racing heart. The room felt smaller, filled with the faint scent of Victoria's perfume and the unspoken tension between them. "It's starting," Victoria said, her voice low. "Rumors. I don't know who started them, but people are talking. About you, about us." Lena's heart skipped. "Rumors? What do you mean?" Victoria closed her eyes briefly, then opened them, her gaze steady. "Some of the staff have noticed the way we interact. Your closeness with Mia, the little moments we've shared. They are speculating. I tried to stop it, but," her voice trailed off. Lena swallowed hard. "I don't care what anyone thinks," she said firmly, though a part of her feared the consequences. "I just care about you." Victoria stepped closer, placing a hand on Lena's cheek. "And I care about you too. That's why we have to be smart. Not careful with our feelings, we don't hide that, but careful with appearances. If this gets out, it could make things very difficult for both of us." Lena nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We'll keep it private. We'll be cautious. I don't want to lose you." Victoria's lips curved into a soft, reassuring smile. "You won't. We just need to navigate this, together." Just then, Mia ran into the room, waving a drawing she had made. "Look. I drew us all." She held up a picture of Lena, Victoria, and herself, smiling brightly. Lena smiled, taking the drawing and ruffling Mia's hair. "It's beautiful, sweetie." Victoria watched them quietly, a faint warmth in her expression. Then, almost as if to steel herself, she said, we'll handle the rumors, Lena. But for now, just stay close to me, and we'll figure it out. Lena felt a surge of determination. The whispers and rumors outside could not touch what they shared. Every secret smile, every stolen touch, every moment of vulnerability between them was theirs alone. As they walked back down the hall, hands brushing lightly, Lena realized that love, secret, forbidden and thrilling, was worth any challenge. And she would fight for it, no matter what. The mansion was quiet in the late afternoon, the golden light from the setting sun casting long shadows across the polished floors. Lena carried a stack of books back to the library when she noticed Victoria sitting at the grand desk, staring at a photograph. It was an old black and white picture, faded at the edges. Lena recognized the young woman in the photo, Sophie, Victoria's younger sister. Victoria didn't notice Lena enter. She was lost in thought, her fingers tracing the outline of Sophie's face in the photograph. Lena stepped closer, unsure if she should speak. "Victoria," she asked softly. Victoria startled, quickly tucking the photo into a drawer. "Lena. I didn't hear you come in," she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You were looking at a picture," Lena said gently. "Is that your sister?" Victoria's smile faltered. She let out a sigh and leaned back in her chair. "Sophie was everything to me. She died young. Accident, a long time ago. I haven't talked about her much." Lena's heart ached at the sorrow in Victoria's voice. "I'm so sorry," she said, her hand hovering near Victoria's in silent comfort. Victoria's eyes softened. "I don't usually let anyone see this side of me. I've always had to be strong, for the family, for Mia, for everything. But with you, I feel like I can let my guard down." Lena's fingers brushed Victoria's hand. "You can," she said softly. "I want to be here. For you, for Mia, for everything." Victoria looked at her, vulnerability and desire mingling in her green eyes. "I've carried this grief for so long," she whispered. "And I never thought anyone could understand, until you." Lena took Victoria's hand in hers, holding it gently. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore," she said, her voice steady. "Not while I'm here." Victoria's lips quirked into a small, grateful smile. "You make it easier to breathe," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. For the first time, Lena saw the depth of Victoria's heart, the layers of loss, strength, and love that made her who she was. And she knew, without a doubt, that she wanted to be part of that life, no matter the risks. They sat together in silence, hands intertwined, the golden light wrapping around them like a promise. The past, with its pain and secrets, was still there, but now there was also the present, full of warmth, trust, and the quiet, growing certainty of a love neither of them could deny. And in that moment, Lena realized that love wasn't just about stolen glances or secret touches. It was about being there, through the grief, the fear, and the shadows of the past. Victoria finally leaned her head against Lena's shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" Lena asked, tilting her head to rest against hers. "For being here. For seeing me." And in the quiet of the library, with shadows dancing on the walls, Lena knew she had found more than a forbidden romance. She had found a heart willing to trust, to love, and to be loved in return. The mansion felt smaller than ever that morning. Lena moved quietly through the hallways, carefully avoiding the watchful eyes of the staff. The whispers she had felt before had grown louder, more pointed, and Lena could sense that the secret she and Victoria shared was beginning to draw attention. She paused outside the study, where Victoria was already at her desk, reviewing documents. Her brow was furrowed, her composure strained. Lena hesitated, then knocked softly. "Come in," Victoria called, her voice steady but tense. Lena stepped inside, placing a basket of laundry on a chair. "Morning," she said, trying to keep her tone casual. Victoria looked up, eyes narrowing slightly. "I heard something today," she said, leaning back in her chair. "A member of the staff mentioned seeing us together last night. They didn't know what they were saying, but people are talking." Lena felt her stomach twist. "Do you think it's serious?" Victoria sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I don't know. But it's enough to make me nervous. We can't afford to let anyone use this against us, or against Mia." Lena stepped closer, placing a hand on Victoria's arm. "We've been careful. We'll be smarter. I don't want to hide how I feel, but I'll follow your lead." Victoria's eyes softened as she looked at Lena, a mixture of worry and affection. "I trust you," she said quietly. "But I hate that the world outside this mansion could make this complicated. I just want us to be safe." Lena leaned her forehead against Victoria's shoulder, letting herself feel the warmth of her presence. "We'll handle it together," she whispered. "Nothing will come between us. Not rumors, not expectations, not anything." Victoria smiled faintly, though a shadow of concern lingered in her eyes. "I hope you're right," she said softly. Just then, Mia ran into the study, waving a drawing she had made at them. "Look! I drew us all again," she exclaimed. Lena laughed, ruffling Mia's hair. "You're getting really good at this," she said, taking the drawing. Victoria's eyes softened as she watched them, and for a brief moment, the tension lifted. But Lena knew it wouldn't last. The mansion, the staff, the rumors, they were all forces outside their control. And yet, in Victoria's gaze, she saw the same determination she felt in herself. They would protect what they had, no matter the obstacles. Lena squeezed Victoria's hand gently. "We're stronger together," she said. Victoria nodded, leaning closer. "Yes. Together." And in that quiet study, surrounded by shadows and whispers, Lena realized that their love, secret, forbidden and fragile, was also resilient, capable of weathering any storm. The city streets were alive with evening lights, the soft hum of traffic and distant chatter creating a sense of ordinary normalcy that both Lena and Victoria felt strangely separate from. They had promised themselves discretion, but tonight, Victoria insisted on a small outing, something private yet visible enough to feel free, if only for a few hours. Lena's hands trembled slightly as they walked side by side, close enough to brush, but careful not to draw attention. Victoria's fingers brushed against hers intentionally, a subtle claim disguised as coincidence. Lena's heart raced, a thrilling mixture of fear and excitement. They arrived at a quiet cafe tucked into a side street, the kind with warm lanterns glowing through the windows. Inside, they found a secluded table in the corner. It was intimate, yet public enough that the world outside still existed, a balance between safety and risk. Victoria leaned slightly closer, lowering her voice. "Are you nervous?" she asked, her lips curving into that signature half-smile that always made Lena's chest tighten. Terrified, Lena admitted with a laugh, trying to hide the blush creeping up her neck. "But happy." Victoria's gaze softened, her hand lightly brushing Lena's across the table. "Good. Because you deserve to be happy." The conversation flowed easily, laughter spilling softly between them, punctuated by small touches, hands grazing, shoulders brushing, fingers lingering a little too long. Every motion carried the thrill of secrecy, the danger of being seen. At one point, Lena reached for her cup, and Victoria's hand covered hers. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the world around them disappeared. No staff, no mansion, no rumors, just the two of them, bound by a connection that felt both forbidden and inevitable. "Victoria," Lena whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Yes?" "I don't want this to ever end," Lena said, her eyes searching her employers, vulnerable yet unwavering. Victoria leaned closer, her forehead resting lightly against Lena's. "It won't," she murmured. "Not as long as we're careful. Not as long as we're together." Outside, the city lights twinkled like distant stars, but inside that cafe, time seemed suspended. Every glance, every brush of skin, every quiet word became a small rebellion against the rules and expectations that threatened to control them. As they left the cafe later, walking hand in hand down the quiet street, Lena felt a rush of exhilaration and fear. They had been seen, just barely, but it didn't matter. Every stolen moment, every risk they took, was proof of what they shared, a love that was growing stronger, braver, and impossible to ignore. And in that thrill, Lena realized that their secret romance was no longer just a private spark. It was a fire, one neither of them could, or wanted to, extinguish. The mansion had never felt so heavy. Lena moved through the hallways with careful steps, every glance from the staff seeming to carry unspoken questions. The rumors that had started quietly weeks ago were now louder, more pointed, and Lena could feel the weight of judgment pressing in on all sides. She found Victoria in the study, reviewing contracts and schedules, her usual composed demeanor unshaken, but Lena noticed the tension in the tight line of her shoulders. "Morning," Lena said cautiously, stepping closer. Victoria didn't look up immediately. Then, without preamble, she said, "We have a problem. Someone overheard last night's cafe outing. Not directly, but it's spreading. Quietly, but it's spreading." Lena's heart sank. "Do you want me to say something? Defend us?" Victoria shook her head. "No. That will make it worse. The more we try to control it, the more attention it draws. We have to be subtle, careful, invisible when we're outside the mansion." Before Lena could respond, the butler entered, bowing slightly. "Miss Lena. Miss Victoria, someone from the staff wishes to speak with you." Victoria's eyes flicked toward Lena. "I'll handle this," she said firmly. Moments later, a young housemaid appeared, hesitant and nervous. I just wanted to apologize if I said anything inappropriate," she stammered. "I didn't mean." Victoria held up a hand. "Thank you for telling me. I appreciate your honesty. That is all." Once the maid left, Victoria turned to Lena, her expression softer. This is unavoidable. People notice when two people are close. But it doesn't have to ruin anything for us." Lena nodded, stepping closer. "We'll face it together. Rumors or not, we're still us." Victoria's lips curved into a small, tired smile. "Yes, us." Later that evening, as they walked together through the gardens, Lena rested her head lightly against Victoria's shoulder. "It feels like the world is closing in on us," she admitted softly. Victoria's fingers brushed through Lena's hair. "Maybe," she murmured, "but let them talk. Let the whispers come. They don't define what we have. They don't know the hours we've shared, the moments no one else sees. That's ours." Lena looked up at her, eyes glimmering in the soft moonlight. "Then we keep our moments sacred," she whispered. Victoria smiled, leaning down to press a soft kiss to Lena's forehead. "Always," she said. And as they continued walking, hand in hand under the moonlight, Lena felt a quiet, unwavering certainty. Rumors, gossip, and expectations could threaten to intrude, but their love, secret, forbidden and thrilling, was untouchable. The mansion was unusually quiet that night. The soft ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway was the only sound, along with the occasional whisper of the wind through the trees outside. Lena moved carefully through the corridors, her heart pounding in anticipation. Victoria was in the study, seated at her desk, papers scattered around her, but she wasn't working. Her green eyes lifted when Lena appeared in the doorway, and the moment their gazes met, the world seemed to narrow until it was just the two of them. "You're late," Victoria said softly, her voice teasing but edged with longing. "I wanted to see you," Lena replied, stepping closer. Her fingers brushed against Victoria's as she set down a small notebook, sending a jolt of electricity up her arm. Victoria's hand lingered over Lena's, her thumb tracing gentle circles. "You shouldn't be here," she murmured, though there was no real warning in her tone. "And yet I am," Lena said, her voice low, charged with emotion. "I can't stay away." For a long moment, they just looked at each other, the distance between them charged with tension. Then, almost imperceptibly, Victoria stood, closing the space. She cupped Lena's face in her hands, tilting her head slightly as their lips met in a kiss that was soft at first, hesitant, but quickly deepened into something urgent, something pent up that had been building for weeks. Lena's hands found their way to Victoria's shoulders, then down her back, holding her close as the kiss grew more passionate. The room seemed to disappear, leaving only the heat between them, the racing of their hearts, the mingling of breaths, the thrill of the forbidden. Victoria pulled back slightly, resting her forehead against Lena's. "We shouldn't," she whispered, though her voice was shaky with desire. "And yet we are," Lena replied, her lips brushing against Victoria's once more. "I don't care about the rules right now. I just want you." Victoria's hands tightened around Lena's, pulling her closer. "I've wanted you for so long," she admitted, her voice trembling with honesty. "Every stolen glance, every touch, it's all I've thought about." The intensity between them grew, a mix of longing and tenderness that was both reckless and beautiful. Every kiss, every caress was a rebellion against the expectations of the mansion, the staff, and the world outside. When they finally pulled back, breathless and flushed, Victoria rested her forehead against Lena's again. "We have to be careful," she whispered. Lena smiled softly, her heart still racing. "Careful, yes, but never apart." Victoria's lips curved into a small, satisfied smile. "Never apart," she echoed. As they sat together in the quiet study, hands intertwined and hearts pounding, Lena realized something profound. Their love was more than stolen kisses and secret touches. It was a force that neither whispers nor rules could diminish. And in that stolen night, with the mansion cloaked in shadows, Lena and Victoria knew that what they shared was worth every risk, every challenge, and every forbidden moment. The mansion was buzzing with unexpected activity that morning. Lena had barely stepped into the kitchen when she noticed more staff than usual moving about, whispers trailing in her wake. Something was off. Victoria appeared from the study, her expression sharp, composed, but Lena noticed the subtle tension in her shoulders. She caught Victoria's eye, and for a moment, the usual warmth was replaced with a flicker of concern. "Lena," Victoria said quietly, drawing her aside. "We have a visitor today. Someone from the board. They are here to inspect the estate's operations. They'll be moving through the house. I need you to stay professional. No closeness. No appearances that could be misinterpreted." Lena nodded, though her chest tightened. "I understand. I'll be careful." Victoria's hand brushed briefly against Lena's, a small, reassuring touch that sent shivers down her spine. "I'll handle the conversations," Victoria added. "Just be yourself, but cautious." The visitor arrived shortly after, a stern-looking woman in her 40s, clipboard in hand, moving quickly through the rooms. She asked questions of the staff, inspected the house, and occasionally glanced at Lena, whose every movement seemed under scrutiny. Lena kept her composure, though her mind raced. Every subtle glance from Victoria, every fleeting touch under the table or behind a door, reminded her how fragile their secret truly was. During lunch, Victoria strategically seated herself across from Lena, their hands hidden beneath the table, but lightly touching when they thought no one was looking. The bored visitor's sharp eyes flicked over them, and Lena felt her stomach tighten. Later, as the inspection concluded, Victoria finally exhaled, a small smile returning to her lips. "We made it," she said softly, brushing a strand of hair from Lena's face. "Nobody suspected a thing." Lena laughed quietly, relief flooding her. "That was close," she admitted. Victoria pulled her into a brief, hidden embrace, careful not to be seen. "Too close," she murmured. "But it reminds me how much I don't want to hide this from you." "Not forever." Lena rested her head against Victoria's shoulder, feeling the warmth and security in that small, secret moment. "We'll figure it out," she whispered. "Together." Victoria kissed the top of her head softly. "Together," she echoed. And in that quiet aftermath, Lena realized that the thrill and danger of their love, secret, passionate, and forbidden, was only making them stronger. Each challenge, each close call, proved that what they shared was worth every risk, every whispered glance, and every stolen touch. The mansion might hold secrets, rules, and expectations, but it couldn't contain what was between them. Not now. Not ever. The mansion was unusually quiet that evening, the kind of stillness that wrapped around Lena like a cocoon. Mia was asleep, and the staff had long finished their evening duties. For the first time in weeks, Lena and Victoria had the house entirely to themselves. Victoria appeared in the hallway, wearing a soft sweater, and looking more relaxed than Lena had ever seen her. When their eyes met, a spark of unspoken desire passed between them. "Lena," Victoria whispered, stepping closer. I want tonight to be just us. No interruptions, no whispers, no rules." Lena's heart raced. "I want that too," she admitted, her voice barely audible. They moved to the library, the warm glow of the fire casting dancing shadows across the room. Victoria closed the door behind them, the click of the latch echoing like a promise of privacy. For a long moment, they simply stood, gazing at each other. Then, almost instinctively, Victoria reached for Lena's hand, entwining their fingers. "I've wanted this, for so long," she murmured, her voice trembling slightly. Lena's lips curved into a soft smile. "Me too. Every day, since I arrived." Victoria pulled her gently closer, their bodies nearly touching. Lena could feel the heat radiating from her, the subtle scent of her perfume filling the space between them. Their hands roamed tentatively at first, arms brushing, fingers tracing, hearts racing with anticipation. Then, with a shared breath, they closed the distance. Their lips met in a kiss that was soft, tender, and yet filled with an urgency born of weeks of longing and secrecy. Lena's hands slid into Victoria's hair, holding her close as the kiss deepened, a mixture of passion, vulnerability, and trust. Victoria's lips curved into a soft smile against Lena's mouth. "Every stolen moment with you, it's never enough," she whispered. Lena rested her forehead against hers, breathing heavily. "Then let's make tonight count," she murmured. The next hours were a quiet exploration of closeness, shared whispers, gentle caresses, and soft laughter that echoed in the empty mansion. Every touch, every lingering gaze, strengthened the bond between them, a connection that was no longer just secret desire, but something profound and unbreakable. As they finally settled by the fire, wrapped in a shared blanket, Lena rested her head on Victoria's chest. "I feel like we're finally, really us," she whispered. Victoria kissed the top of her head, holding her tight. "We are," she said softly. "And nothing, no rumor, no expectation, no one, can take that away from us." In that quiet, private moment, Lena realized that their love had moved beyond stolen glances and hidden touches. It was real, deep, and unwavering. And no matter what challenges the outside world might bring, they would face them together, stronger, braver, and inseparably bound by the intimacy they had created and cherished. Lena moved carefully, assisting Mia, organizing tasks, and keeping a watchful eye on Victoria. Every glance, every smile had to be measured. Yet beneath the surface, the tension between them pulsed, small touches when nobody was looking, lingering looks across the dining room, whispered words during brief moments alone. That evening, when the aunt retired to her suite, Victoria found Lena in the library. She pulled her into a quiet embrace, their foreheads resting together. "You did beautifully today," Victoria whispered. "Even with all the eyes, all the scrutiny, we managed. Together." Lena smiled, pressing her cheek against Victoria's. "We always do." Victoria leaned down, brushing her lips against Lena's temple in a soft, stolen kiss. "Promise me we'll keep protecting what we have," she murmured. "I promise," Lena replied. "No matter what." And as they stood together in the quiet library, the mansion bustling around them yet oblivious to their secret, Lena realized that love, secret, forbidden, and tested by circumstance, was strongest when it was nurtured with trust, courage, and unwavering devotion. The challenges were real, but so was their connection. And nothing, not even a sharp-eyed aunt or a watchful household, could diminish the bond they shared. The mansion's evening was alive with quiet activity. The staff had finished their tasks for the day, and the aunt had retired early, exhausted from her inspections and critiques. But the air between Lena and Victoria was charged with a tension that neither could ignore. Victoria found Lena in the nursery, gently checking on Mia before tucking her in. When Lena turned, she found Victoria leaning against the door frame, her green eyes glimmering with a mixture of desire and mischief. "You're taking risks," Lena said softly, a smile tugging at her lips. Victoria stepped closer, her hand brushing lightly against Lena's arm. "And you'll take them with me," she murmured. "Just for a few stolen moments. No one will see, and it will be ours." Lena's heart raced. She knew the danger. Victoria's aunt was still in the house, and the staff moved like shadows in the background. But the thrill of secrecy made her pulse quicken. "Then let's make it count," she whispered. They moved through the dimly lit corridors, careful to avoid the few lingering staff members. Each brush of hands, each lingering gaze, sent shivers down Lena's spine. Finally, they reached the small conservatory at the back of the mansion, a hidden sanctuary filled with soft light from lanterns and the faint scent of blooming flowers. Victoria closed the door behind them, the click of the lock sealing them in a private world. She pulled Lena close, her hands sliding around her waist, holding her tight. "I've wanted this," Victoria admitted, her lips brushing against Lena's. "Every moment we've been apart, every stolen glance, it's all been leading to this." Lena's hands found their way to Victoria's neck, pulling her closer. "I want this too," she whispered, her voice trembling with anticipation. Their kiss started slow, careful, testing the boundaries of their desire. But soon, it deepened, urgent and consuming, as if the world outside could never reach them here. Fingers traced, hands roamed, and every brush of skin was charged with the thrill of secrecy. Victoria pulled back slightly, resting her forehead against Lena's. "We can't be reckless," she murmured, her voice low and husky. Lena smiled against her lips. "We'll be careful. But for now, just us." They spent the next hour wrapped in each other's arms, sharing whispers, gentle touches, and heated kisses. Every moment in the conservatory strengthened the bond between them, a love that was secret, dangerous, and breathtakingly real. When they finally emerged from the hidden sanctuary, hands entwined and cheeks flushed, Lena realized something profound. Their love thrived in the stolen moments, in the daring escapes, and in the quiet knowledge that, no matter the risks, they belonged to each other. Victoria squeezed her hand, a soft smile playing on her lips. "Always together," she whispered. "Always," Lena echoed. And in the hushed corridors of the mansion, Surrounded by shadows and the faint scent of flowers, they both knew that no scrutiny, no rules, and no whispers could ever dim the fire between them. The mansion was unusually tense that morning. Even the familiar creaks of the floors seemed to carry a sharper edge, as if echoing the unease Lena felt in her chest. She moved through the hallways carefully, keeping her steps quiet, her eyes alert for anything unusual. Victoria was in the study when Lena arrived, her green eyes scanning documents, but shadowed with worry. The weak stolen moments, the secret touches, the hidden kisses, had left a trail, subtle but noticeable. "I've noticed something," Victoria said quietly as Lena approached. "One of the staff. Emily. She's been watching us more than usual. Asking questions. I think she suspects something." Lena's stomach tightened. "What should we do?" Victoria ran a hand through her hair, a flicker of frustration passing over her usually composed features. "We keep our distance in public. We can't afford any slip-ups, not now, not ever. But we can still have our moments when we're alone. Quiet, careful, hidden." Lena nodded, her resolve firm. "I'll be careful. I won't give her a reason to see anything." Throughout the day, Lena followed the plan. She maintained professional distance, carefully navigating the watchful eyes of staff, and ensuring Mia's care remained flawless. But every glance from Victoria across the hall, every subtle brush of hands, reminded her how thin the line was between secrecy and exposure. By evening, Lena found Victoria in the conservatory, the soft lantern light casting shadows across her face. The tension from the day hung in the air, but so did the undeniable pull between them. "We have to be smarter," Victoria whispered, stepping close. "Every step we take outside these walls could be noticed. Emily is persistent, curious. And the aunt's visit only heightened scrutiny." Lena's hands found Victoria's, holding them tightly. "I don't care about the whispers or the suspicion," she said firmly. "I only care about us." Victoria's lips curved into a small, tired smile. "I know. And I feel the same. But we have to protect what we have, Lena. Every secret moment, every stolen touch, it's precious because it's ours." Lena rested her forehead against Victoria's. "Then we'll be careful. Together." Victoria's eyes softened, her fingers tracing gentle patterns along Lena's arm. "Together," she repeated. The day had tested them, forced them to navigate the growing suspicion, to hide their love behind smiles and propriety. Yet in the quiet sanctuary of the conservatory, away from prying eyes, their bond grew stronger, more resilient. For Lena, it was clear, love wasn't just passion or stolen moments, it was trust, patience, and courage. And no matter how sharp the suspicion, no matter how close the threat, she and Victoria would face it together. As the evening shadows deepened, Lena realized that the mansion's whispers and watchful eyes could never diminish what they shared. Their love was stronger than fear, and it would survive anything, so long as they held fast to each other. The mansion had never felt quieter, yet for Lena and Victoria, it was alive with possibility. The challenges, the whispers, the suspicious staff, the scrutinizing family, had tested their secret at every turn. But tonight, the fear of being caught had faded, replaced by a fierce certainty. They could no longer deny the depth of what they felt for each other. Victoria found Lena in the nursery, brushing a stray curl from Mia's face as the little girl slept. Lena looked up, their eyes meeting with a mix of longing and resolve. "I can't keep pretending," Victoria said softly, stepping closer. "Not to myself, not to you." Lena's heart raced. "Then we won't." "Not anymore." Victoria reached out, taking Lena's hand, holding it firmly. "We've been careful, cautious, but we've also been alive. Every glance, every touch, every stolen moment, it's all led to this. I don't want to hide us anymore, Lena." Tears threatened Lena's eyes. Neither do I, she whispered. I love you, Victoria. I have from the beginning. Victoria smiled, her green eyes shining with emotion. And I love you. Always have. They moved together to the grand living room, the familiar space now a stage for honesty rather than secrecy. Victoria drew Lena into her arms, and this time, there was no hesitation. Their lips met in a kiss that was full, unrestrained, and certain. Every lingering touch, every brush of skin, carried the weight of weeks of longing and fear, now transformed into freedom. Mia stirred from the nursery, peeking around the corner, but when she saw Lena and Victoria holding each other, a smile spread across her face. Mommy, she whispered, using the name she had been testing. Lena laughed softly, lifting the little girl into her arms. Not yet, sweetie, she said, nuzzling her cheek. But soon, maybe. Victoria rested her hand on Lena's back, a soft, protective presence. We'll face the world together, she said, voice firm. No whispers, no fear, just us. For the first time, Lena felt truly safe. Their love was no longer secret, hidden in shadows or stolen moments. It was theirs, bold, unshakable, and beautiful. They spent the evening together, wrapped in each other's arms, the mansion silent around them. Outside, the world could whisper, watch, or judge, but inside, there was only warmth, trust, and the certainty that they had chosen each other, no matter the cost. As the night deepened, Lena rested her head against Victoria's chest, feeling the steady beat of her heart. We made it, she whispered. Victoria kissed the top of her head, a soft smile on her lips. We did. Together. And in the quiet grandeur of the mansion, with the shadows dancing softly around them, Lena knew one thing for certain: their love had survived every obstacle, every fear, and every secret. It was real, it was theirs, and it would never be hidden again. The mansion might hold secrets, rules, and expectations, but it could never hold back a love this strong. Together, Lena and Victoria faced the future, hearts entwined, fearless and unshakable, ready to embrace every moment, every joy, and every challenge, as one.